Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, we examine a seismic shift in America's alliances, triggered by a bold demand from Washington. President Trump has issued a $900 billion ultimatum to Japan and South Korea: pay for U.S. protection or face economic consequences. This unprecedented move has sent shockwaves through the international community. For decades, the United States has been the cornerstone of security in Asia, providing a protective umbrella that has allowed Japan and South Korea to flourish economically and politically. Now, that very foundation is being questioned. The post-war security order that has kept Asia stable for decades is under threat. The alliances formed in the aftermath of World War II were designed to prevent the rise of militarism and ensure peace in the region. American soldiers have been stationed in Japan and South Korea for generations, symbolizing a commitment to mutual defense and shared values. The world watches as trust and mutual defense are tested in a high-stakes game of brinkmanship. News outlets across the globe are buzzing with speculation and concern. In Tokyo and Seoul, people gather around large screens, anxiously awaiting updates. The stakes couldn't be higher. With deadlines passed and shockwaves rippling through the global economy, the future of these alliances, and the balance of power in Asia, hangs in the balance. Financial markets are reacting with volatility, and the economic implications are profound. The stability of the region is not just a political issue, but an economic one as well. How did we reach this point? And what does it mean for the region's future? Let's unpack the crisis. Analysts are poring over maps and data, trying to predict the next moves. The decisions made in the coming days will shape the future of Asia and potentially the world. Stay with us as we delve deeper into this unfolding story. To truly understand the current crisis in the Pacific, we must look back and revisit the origins of America's alliances with Japan and South Korea. These relationships didn't just appear overnight, they were carefully constructed in the aftermath of one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. The scars of World War II left both Japan and South Korea vulnerable, their societies in ruins and their futures uncertain. It was in this fragile moment that the United States stepped in, not only as a military power, but as a partner in rebuilding and reshaping the region. Forged in the crucible of post-war reconstruction, the treaties between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea enabled both nations to rise from the ashes. Under the protective umbrella of American security, Japan and South Korea were able to focus on rebuilding their economies, investing in education, infrastructure, and industry. Over the decades, these countries transformed into economic powerhouses, their cities bustling with innovation and growth. The U.S. presence was not just military, it was a stabilizing force that allowed for prosperity and peace to take root in a region once defined by conflict. In exchange, the United States gained invaluable strategic footholds in East Asia, military bases that extended American influence and provided a deterrent against regional threats. This arrangement allowed Japan and South Korea to channel their resources into economic development, confident that the U.S. would stand by them in times of crisis. The alliance was built on mutual benefit and trust, with each side playing a crucial role in maintaining regional stability. For decades, disagreements over the costs of maintaining this security partnership were handled discreetly, behind closed doors. Diplomats and officials from all sides worked tirelessly to find common ground, always striving for compromise and consensus. The spirit of cooperation was paramount, and the alliance endured through changing governments and shifting global dynamics. But in recent years, that tradition has been upended. The Trump administration's public ultimatums and demands for sharply increased cost-sharing have shattered the quiet diplomacy that once defined these relationships. Negotiations that were once private are now played out in the media, fueling uncertainty and mistrust. For many in Japan and South Korea, these new tactics feel like a betrayal of decades of partnership. The sense of being valued allies is fading, replaced by the uncomfortable feeling of being treated as mere clients. This shift has sparked public protests, political debate, and growing anxiety about the future of the alliance. As a result, the reliability of America's security guarantee, the very bedrock of Pacific stability, is now being questioned, not just by leaders, but by ordinary citizens across the region. The future of these alliances, and the peace they have helped maintain, hangs in the balance. The shock came swiftly. Trump's administration demanded $900 billion from Japan and South Korea for U.S. military presence, Framed as America First, the demand was less a negotiation, more a bill for decades of security. The administration argued allies had long underpaid for their defense, justifying the sum as retroactive and future compensation. This approach ignored the deep, treaty-bound commitments and non-financial contributions of both nations. The ultimatum was met with outrage, reducing complex alliances to mere transactions. The stage was set for confrontation, not compromise. When the ultimatum was rejected, the Trump administration escalated, announcing a 25% tariff on all Japanese and South Korean imports. Companies were told to relocate manufacturing to the U.S. by August 1st or face penalties. The president called it an invitation to invest in America, linking trade imbalances to national security. For global giants like Samsung and Toyota, the demand was logistically impossible and economically disastrous. The tariffs turned a diplomatic dispute into a trade war, hitting businesses and consumers directly. Hopes for a diplomatic solution faded as the deadline passed. The world watched for the next move. In a rare show of unity, Japan and South Korea flatly rejected the $900 billion demand. This was more than a financial decision. It was a stand for sovereignty and partnership over coercion. Leaders insisted their alliance with the U.S. was built on mutual respect, not transactions. The move resonated with citizens tired of great power pressure. Both nations, already deepening ties with China, now accelerated their push for strategic autonomy. Their joint defiance, despite historical tensions, turned a bilateral dispute into a multilateral standoff. The stakes for the U.S. had never been higher. For South Korea, the crisis struck at a moment of profound uncertainty and transition. The country was already grappling with political turbulence, as the recent election had ushered in a new era of leadership. The air in Seoul was thick with anticipation and anxiety, as citizens wondered what the future would hold. At the center of this storm stood President Lee Jae-myung, a leader who had campaigned on promises of reform and renewal. Yet, almost immediately, he found himself facing a daunting economic landscape. The South Korean economy, long celebrated for its resilience and innovation, was now showing signs of fragility. Headlines blared warnings of slowing growth, rising unemployment, and mounting public debt. Lee's ambitious reform agenda, which aimed to modernize industries and expand social welfare, depended heavily on stable international trade. South Korea's prosperity had always been tied to its ability to export goods to the world, and any disruption threatened to unravel years of progress. But then came the shock, sweeping U.S. tariffs on key South Korean exports. These tariffs put at risk more than 40% of the nation's GDP, sending shockwaves through boardrooms and factory floors alike. The very foundation of South Korea's economic model was suddenly in jeopardy. Major conglomerates like Samsung and SK Hynix, the pride of South Korea's technological prowess, found themselves in an impossible position. On one side, they faced mounting demands from the United States, a crucial ally and trading partner. On the other, the vast and lucrative Chinese market beckoned, but with its own set of risks and expectations. The tariffs forced these companies to make difficult choices, threatening their global competitiveness and putting thousands of jobs at risk. As factories slowed and uncertainty grew, the mood among business leaders turned grim. Meanwhile, at home, domestic challenges only intensified. Legal battles erupted over alleged corporate misconduct, fueling public skepticism and protests in the streets. Many South Koreans questioned whether their leaders and business elites could navigate the nation through such turbulent times. President Lee now faced a delicate balancing act. He had to stand firm against U.S. pressure, defending South Korea's interests on the world stage, while also seeking compromise to avoid a full-blown economic crisis. Every diplomatic meeting, every handshake, carried enormous weight. Behind the scenes, financial analysts and policymakers worked around the clock, searching for ways to shield the economy from further shocks. Emergency meetings at the central bank and government ministries became the new normal as leaders scrambled to stabilize markets and reassure the public. In these critical moments, President Lee's leadership was put to the ultimate test. His decisions would not only shape the immediate response to the crisis, but also define the direction of South Korea for years to come. The eyes of the nation, and the world, were upon him. As South Korea stood at this crossroads, its path forward hung in the balance. The choices made now would determine whether the country could weather the storm and emerge stronger or be swept away by the tides of global change. The 25% tariffs sent shockwaves through Asia's supply chains. South Korea, heavily export-dependent, faced immediate threats to jobs and growth. Japan, with a more diversified economy, still saw its key industries, especially autos, hit hard. Companies scrambled to rethink global strategies, facing higher costs and uncertainty. The invitation to relocate was, in reality, a recipe for fragmentation and inefficiency. Economic interdependence, once a stabilizer, was now a weapon. Trust in the global trading system eroded, replaced by political risk. The world edged closer to economic blocs defined by allegiance, not advantage. Amid the turmoil, one question looms: who benefits? Many say China. As the U.S. pressures its allies, China steps in, offering trade deals and stability. America's coercive tactics risk driving partners toward Beijing, undermining decades of alliance building. China presents itself as a reliable alternative, exploiting U.S. missteps. The American alliance system, its greatest asset, is at risk. If trust erodes, allies may seek accommodation with China, shifting the Indo-Pacific balance. Southeast Asian nations watch nervously, fearing similar treatment. The region could drift toward a China-centric order, a strategic blunder for the U.S. The consequences may be historic and irreversible. Tonight, we've witnessed a crisis reshaping America's ties with Asia. What began as a $900 billion ultimatum has become a defining test of alliances and global order. Japan and South Korea's united defiance signals a new era of strategic independence. For South Korea's President Lee, it's a trial by fire. For the region, a moment of recalculation. The U.S. risks ceding influence to China without a shot fired. The world now waits. Will America double down or seek a path to de-escalation? The answer will shape the future of alliances and the world for years to come.